Hi, welcome to the Open Source Defense Podcast. I'm Chuck R. Today we have Cameron and Joe from ShotPay, a new startup that is in the payment space. I'll describe it in a minute, but I do want to introduce Joe and Cameron. Joe is the co-founder and CEO of ShotPay. He's an Australian expat, now based in Austin. He spent his career building and scaling high-growth companies at the intersection of e-commerce, fintech, and AI. Before ShotPay, he was president and chairman of the board at GrowWave, which was an all-in-one marketing platform for Shopify brands. He's a longtime operator in the Shopify and embedded commerce ecosystem. He hosts a podcast of his own, featuring founders and operators in that world. With ShotPay, he's bringing the payments and platform background to bear on a market that most of the friends in those spaces won't touch. We have Cameron as co-founder and chief revenue officer of ShotPay. He's a former Army Ranger and he co-founded Toor Knives. I think a lot of us know San Diego-based veteran-owned maker of American-made tactical and EDC blades, become genuinely respected name in the community, in the blade community. I'm a closet blade freak. I have a ton of blades, probably a couple Toors, and a really cool brand. He's had firsthand education what it's like to build and run a business inside the firearms and tactical space, including financial and operational friction that comes with the territory, and it absolutely extends to knives as well. He's been involved with Clandestine Media Group and RE Factor Tactical as well. He can describe those later, but he's been busy in the tactical space. And finally, ShotPay. The purpose of this discussion really is to get into what gave rise to ShotPay. The idea is it's a payments and financing platform built specifically for the shooting, hunting, outdoor, and tactical industry. It's a simple idea. Mainstream payment processors and buy now, pay later providers either avoid or actively restrict firearms-related merchants, which leaves a huge chunk of the industry stuck with high fees, deplatforming risk, and limited financial options for their customers. ShotPay's bet is to be the financial infrastructure layer that doesn't flinch, combining credit card processing, pay in for, buy now, pay later, and layaway with compliance tooling built for the realities of our space. So FFL validation, state-by-state rules. They're based in Texas, and the company is going after a market most of the fintech won't touch. That's a common thread with open source defense and our little entrepreneur podcast here. So we invest in a number of companies with OSD capital, and ShotPay is one of those companies that we invest in because they are smart people solving problems in an industry that has been neglected and doesn't have smart people who want to go after these things. So welcome, Joe. Welcome, Cameron.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
I think the first question for you guys is, you have Joe is clearly Australian and Cameron is clearly not. How did you guys meet to kind of decide that, this is a major endeavor. How did you meet to decide that you actually like each other and can pull off something like this?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk to that. So initially we met in my previous role. So I was very heavily focused on growing GrowWave. We met through a mutual friend who was a partner of GrowWave's, became really good friends. And essentially we got into some very heavy discussions early on about the gaps that existed, particularly for e-commerce in the shooting, hunting, outdoors, tactical space. And personally, I was just blown away with Cameron's demeanor, his personality, his business acumen. He's a lot younger than me, but he's also a lot smarter than me in a lot of ways. And we just clicked and teamed up to solve this problem. And we've just brought in the best of the best from our own networks to solve this problem. And we're having a great time doing it.
You agree with all that, Cameron?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's perfect. I think, I've for the past decade been beating my head against my desk, trying to figure out, I guess you could call me a little bit of a tech nerd for as blue collary and as much of a bull in a china shop that I can be. I have found a little bit of an attraction to the tech world. And probably about 6 years ago, I was trying to tackle a lot of these issues by myself. and it just caused such a headache. And I'm sitting there for year over year trying to figure out how we can solve some of this stuff. I mean, I'm probably one of many victims, at least in the payment space, that has had money locked up, and then it's just like this gray area. But when you get it back, and come to find out they're just locking it up so they can make interest on it. Not to mention all the plugins that we don't have access to, and being that we're in a generation of e-commerce heavy businesses, technology is everything, right? So the gun industry, or the shot industry, I should say, is extremely underserved. And I would say, even using that word, underserved, I would probably actually say exiled, right? Where it's like we just don't have access to a lot of the platforms and technology that I've seen in other businesses that I'm a part of. So, stepping back now, beating my head against my desk for years and years and years to find some of these solutions. Joe and I linked up on the loyalty side of things with GrowWave. Was exploring a lot of opportunities there. And then I finally just hit him. I was like, dude, I know you have connections in this world. Please help me out. And that's where the conversation started. So I definitely have more of like the operator merchant position within the company, which obviously offers a little bit different of a view. But I'm the firsthand victim, right, that we're solving for. So it does position us well in terms of a lot of the partners we already work with. But yeah, it's so long overdue that we find solutions for some of this stuff. So
yeah, we see that a lot. I mean, you guys kind of break the mold a little bit. I mean, Cameron, you did something that I think a lot of ex-team guys do. Special operators and various groups, is usually there's a hardware thing you guys are drawn to, and for you it was the knives. Other guys are doing everything from grips to optics to risers to all these little accoutrements that they rightfully understand and want to get to the masses. But then a number of them, like yourself, kind of see the technology side. This is very much a software solution here. So it's interesting that we've seen, via various pitches, via OSD Capital, a bunch of people like you doing software solutions, or even, augmented reality solutions, and some cool technology solutions. This one in particular makes a lot of sense. And I was going to, you don't need an amazing backstory here. The problem is exactly what you said. You were trying to do stuff basic, run a business, and you hit the wall. So Joe, I think you probably saw this as well, being, firearms adjacent. Was it, and I'm just surprised it's enough to piss you off to say, like, I'm going to go fix this, right?
Well, I came into this space as an enthusiast, like the firearms, the tactical, the shooting, hunting, outdoors. So for me, I was so used to having these seamless experiences on e-commerce. And then I went to purchase firearms online, and I was like checking my watch, like, what date is this? What year is this? Where are we right now? Because I was just so blown away by how archaic it was. Then I was waiting for a firearm to ship. I'm not going to name the merchant because they're quite big, and I think they're trying to pick things up. And hopefully if they pick us up, they'll be able to pick up this side of it. But then I was waiting, and it was like, hey, we're waiting from a fax from your FFL. And I called up my FFL, and like, I don't have a fax machine. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, it just blew my mind. And as a resident, I was on a visa at that time, a working visa. And so I was like already trying to navigate all of that stuff, which is like, pardon my French, but it's a bit of a shit show as it is, trying to understand how all of that works. But then to add this layer of complexity on, to then have to go figure this out and bridge these gaps between a semi-stranger and a complete stranger behind a website asking for a faxed copy of an FFL license, I just was like, this has got to change. And then after talking to Cameron further and further, we listed out this whole very long list of things that were neglected in this space or could be improved from a technology perspective. And I think for me, Chuck, one thing that really sat well with me from my career was when I was at Fast, which was the fintech, the one-click checkout. It had this, spectacular ebb and flow and a big explosion of popularity. And technology later got acquired by a firm. But the problem they were trying to solve is just removing all friction from checkout. So that is a big part of what we see with ShotPay, is being able to make that checkout process as seamless as possible. Obviously, there's a few other things to navigate around that for compliance and making sure that everything falls through properly. But that stuck with me. And then as soon as Cam told me the problems he'd faced and a whole bunch of his friends and people in this space were facing with payments, once we peeled that back and dug into it more, I was just blown away by some of the horror stories. And these aren't people that are doing anything wrong. A lot of the time it's mom and pops who've created something really cool, whether it be, you mentioned some of the things earlier, like optic risers or grips or like any of those sort of components, or these niche 2011 companies, but they're just not getting the support they need, and they're not able to scale at the pace they should be able to because they don't have that infrastructure. But that's here we are, and that's what we're here to solve.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And again, just to, give, back up Cameron, it's like, knives especially are still problematic. It's like knives might as well be guns when it comes to a lot of the commerce platforms, advertising platforms, what have you. So I just want the readers or the listeners to understand that it goes just beyond FFL serialized items, right? It's like literally literally a hand stop, a finger stop, a riser, a scope, optics, all those things, magazines for sure. I mean, ammo and mags, because those do have restrictions, but these are other things that are just completely unrestricted, like handguards and barrel attachments or whatever. So ShotPay is actually going for a pretty significant slice of the ecosystem here. And so everyone obviously thinks, processing and payment processing is obviously the big one. And there's been all sorts of efforts to do that. And it's certainly better now in the general ecosystem if you're in this space to find a payment provider. There's hope. They're not all great, and you don't have total flexibility. But you guys are going into a more interesting space, and those two spaces are buy now, pay later, which we're going to call BNPL, and Layaway, the good old Layaway, resurrecting that. Can you explain, is that the main thrust of it, or is that's probably the innovative part that's going to be interesting?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to that. So the card processing is just something that has to be done. Like people and businesses, and whether they're a manufacturer of firearms or whether they're manufacturing, to your point, optics, etc., that is definitely a neglected space. So what we're finding as we're diving in and onboarding these merchants for processing, so we start having a conversation with them and they're like, oh, could you help me with my back end processing? And we're like, okay, explain that a little bit more. And they're operating like sometimes 3, the most we've seen is 6 different systems that are Frankenstein together to be able to make sure that they're collecting payments on their website, but then collecting payments on the back end when they're doing distribution deals or selling to government departments, et cetera, et cetera. So we're really trying to centralize that component initially first. And then we see the BNPL and Layaway as a conversion tool. And it's a conversion tool that helps the merchant give the customer more choice, but it gives the customer a better option and a better choice, because some customers might be anti-credit. Like, we only do a soft pull when it comes to BNPL, so it's not affecting their credit rating, but for whatever reason, they might be anti-credit. But they do want to purchase that brand new 2011 that cost them $2,000, and they don't want to do it all in one big chunk. So we give them the flexibility to be able to pay that off over time. And the merchant's really happy because they've converted a customer that they wouldn't have converted before. And as you know, Chuck, conversion rates in this space are so low compared to traditional e-com. So we're really trying to bridge a couple of gaps with this product.
Right on. Cameron, you're the one that's, I think, been in the space the longest, kind of get the gun nut crowd. I've been in there a long time myself, from just the consumer and enthusiast and competition side. What's your impression on how things like BNPL and Layaway are accepted in this particular vertical? They have obviously implications. I mean, the joke is how you can BNPL your Chipotle order, right? And so there's a lot of memes about kind of the BNPL generation. I don't necessarily get it myself. You're closer in age to probably people who are going to take advantage of this. So you have both the kind of the age advantage for people in tune with this kind of arrangement, and also the gun people who would be taking advantage of it. Do you see a good synergy there?
Yeah, I mean, I think for one, right, just consumer psychology, seeing a lower number is a little bit more palatable for them, right? Where we really step in and differ is just we're not predators, right? Like everybody in consumer lending seems to be such a predator in this space, and because we're by the industry for the industry, we just want to help convert more orders. We want to get guns into lawful citizens' hands, right? We want to make sure everybody has that opportunity and not do it in this like predatory way, right? So the buy now pay later as a lending product is super clean. There's zero interest to the actual customer. It's very clean and clear payments, right? But to the merchant, they're paying a fixed fee that allows them to, like Joe said, convert an order that may not have originally converted. So from the merchant side, I'm a huge conversion rate optimization nerd. That's kind of where I've really dug my teeth in over the last 5 years. And if you break down what CRO is, or just converting people online, it's traffic times conversion times average order value, right? So two things there ShotPay can really do is you can boost conversion significantly. We're talking 20 to 30% on standard websites. Average adoption rates around 15%. It also allows or helps AOV go up, right? So as I'm seeing a little bit more flexibility as a customer, I'm willing to kind of throw a little bit more in there. So it's a clean way to kind of convert a customer, one, that wouldn't have already converted. But two, it offers a plan. It's very clear, and it doesn't rip your credit to pieces. And what I will say is in the gun space specifically, if you just match up the data in terms of every other industry in the world that does e-commerce, the default rates are significantly lower in the gun space. And we can come up with every idea we want to of why that is. Responsibility, it's older people, whatever the case may be. That's a true data point. So it's interesting. I think at the end of the day, for the BNPL side and the layaway side, we're really focused on the CRO aspect and not just being consumer lending. But on the payment side, this is the biggest one for me because this is where I've had the most headache, right? And the simple truth, and Joe's seeing this now that we've begun rolling this out to different merchants, a lot of merchants and businesses don't even know who they're working with, right? And it's because there's so many hidden layers in a payment processing stack that it's like you may be talking to, name that payments company, but they're also working with 10 other people underneath them, whether it's banks or payment gateways or whatever the case may be. So even when we go ask like, hey, can you just give us a merchant statement? We're going to go in and just beat your rates right now. They don't even know how to get that, right? So the real value of ShotPay payment processing is a simple fact that we've built this massive Rolodex of partnerships with two-way friendly banks, two-way friendly gateways, everything that's in our ecosystem, everybody that we work with is 100% two-way friendly. So in terms of security, transparency, all that good stuff for the payment processing side, it is hands down the safest thing that you can do for your payments. And you won't have to go through the nightmares that I've been through where, hey, Black Friday, we're going to lock up your money, or we're going to stop, transacting on your website, or, hey, guess what? Payroll's coming up. That's a perfect time for us to just, not give you your payouts. So it's an interesting world, but the payment processing side is really that was the 1,000-pound gorilla that we didn't even realize at first, but came in and found a solution for.
Yeah, you bring up some really good points there. Just to unpack some of that, on the product side, which would be the BNPL, the layaway, those are things people are familiar with. And I 100% agree with you that, my gut impression and empirical evidence is that you're in a sector, you're in a vertical that doesn't like debt, and is probably, again, has low default rates, and at the same time is more prone to panic buying, right? And really wants to take advantage of like an administration change, a law coming down the books, like in Virginia or any other state. And we've lived this 1,000 times. And yeah, I hate to say it, I don't want to be a fearmonger, but there's been times in life where if I didn't move on that object, it becomes exponentially harder, even impossible after the fact, right? I'll say 1984 with the Hughes Amendment, right? If we had known what was going to happen, or we were a little bit, if I was, you guys probably weren't born, but if I was a little bit smarter, I would have really stocked up on expensive, class 3, full auto devices, et cetera, right?
Yeah,
So
I
we have
mean,
that same thing now.
yeah, it's a great point, and I'll focus on the data, not opinions, right? The truth of it is this: when there is a Democrat in office, gun sales go through the roof, right? When there's a Republican in office, they come down. What does that tell you? Well, it tells you people, whether it's fear mongering or fear based or whatever, the industry does flex with those political changes. And we see it every year, right? It's like businesses are tanking, when you would expect them to be going through the roof, and vice versa. But the gun industry has kind of developed this very unique culture where they'll do pre-sales, they'll do specialty gun builds, they'll do all these things where it's like secure it now for, maybe it's secure it now because something's coming down the road, or secure it now because we're going to go out and build it to order. But that was really kind of the fuel behind the layaway side, where it's like a lot of these guns, say you're going to get the latest Noveski, like they came out with a really, really cool hot design, but it's on, a 6-month lead time or a 60-day lead time. What difference does layaway make at that point, right? Where it's like, you're not going to receive the product anyways. Let's choose layaway. We're giving you guys another option. Pay it off, and then by the time you're done, that gun ships or that product ships. So there's a few little nuances there of why it works so well in this industry. But at the end of the day, to your point, we see that typically you don't have as much of a reoccurring purchase during those times, right? You have bulk purchasing. So it's somebody coming in buying 10,000 rounds or 4 guns, or it's a new gun buyer that something happened in the news and they're like, oh, I need a pistol, a shotgun, and a rifle. And they don't understand what goes into it because they're a new gun buyer. So it's a unique industry for that, but that also kind of justifies the layaway side of it.
Right. Joe, another thing Cameron hit on was, and you hit it on yourself, was kind of the confusion with the mom and pop stores, big retailers, whoever it is. So one section, we've talked about the consumer side and what they're going to perceive with ShotPay and the advantages they have. Your other challenges on the back end, as you mentioned, right, with the vendors, the retailers, even the manufacturers. So as we all know, and we've said many times on this podcast, the firearms industry, or the vertical, is not the most forward-thinking, dynamic, quick to change and adopt kind of place, right? We still cringe when we go to 90% of the gun store retailers. Still not my favorite experience. One of your challenges is going to be, can you package this and put this in a very simple way with very low technical friction? I mean, like you said, we're going to be dealing with a lot of fax machines here. Weaning them off the fax machines, and even FTP sites and things like that for getting data across. So how is it going as far as, getting everything from mom and pop up to the big stuff, retailers on board, and understanding the package you're offering?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good point, because at the moment we're dealing with really, really big established who've got archaic systems in place that they need to slowly unwind to then transition over properly. And then we've got up and coming mom and pops growing quick, and they've got all of these different systems, but this same problem kind of still exists. And you are right about the technology side of it and the various understandings of technology. Obviously, with larger, you have the advantage that typically there's someone in there that is handling things from e-commerce perspective or a POS perspective or something like that. So we're usually just dealing with multi-stakeholders there, which means that the cycle from start of conversation to onboarding is a little bit longer. In the smaller, kind of merchants, what we're seeing, or manufacturers, is that they might have an e-com business that's doing, let's call it 2 million. They might have a wholesale business that's going business to business that's doing, say, 4 million. And then they may also have this other side of things, which is B2G, so business to government department. And they might be doing 6 million on that side of it, right? But they're using 3 different systems. So when we go into these conversations with those merchants, it's about showing them what that unification looks like. And, from my background of SaaS, there's been this huge consolidation movement going on for, I would say, the last 2 to 3 years of everyone trying to unify their tech stacks. So it took a lot of that learnings in the way that we approach this. And it's mainly centers around being able to have one centralized dashboard. So you have multiple endpoints coming into one dashboard where they can look at that one dashboard. They can see exactly what's going on in which component. It gives them clarity, so they actually then want to learn about it. I think what happens at the moment is everything is disjointed and it seems too complex to tackle in any way. But when we're able to show them why they should learn it and the fact that they can centralize this, they get super excited about it, so they're prepared to learn. The other thing that has shocked me and surprised me immensely, coming from what I would call, traditional D2C e-commerce, is that in this space in particular, not only are customers using mobile more and more, but merchants are relying on mobile a lot more. And so whilst they may still some are still sending faxes to do FFL transfers or expecting them, they all really know how to use a phone. Like, they're all glued to it. They're using it for everything. So when we're able to explain to them that these dashboards are accessible by a phone, things like two-factor authentication, they're used to a lot of that stuff. So they adopt to it pretty quick. But I think the biggest thing that we're seeing, with larger merchants that we're talking to, it just blows my mind. I can somewhat see that some of the smaller, mom and pops or manufacturers get knocked back from sort of large processes and those sorts of things. But what I'm hearing more and more when we speak to these larger kind of organizations and larger retailers who are predominantly online, they're running into the issue where they're processing huge amounts of volume, huge amounts of money. They've tamed all their chargebacks. They're a very, what I would say, viable customer to a processor, yet the rates are shockingly inflated as to what they should be. It blows my mind. I would suggest 2 out of 3 big retailers that you've probably bought online from, Chuck, are paying a lot more than what you would think they would be paying for processing. It's pretty mind-blowing, to be honest. So you got 2 different ends of the spectrum. And I'm not sure if that's because they're just used to that, so they don't challenge it and they're not aware until someone else comes in who is actually looking after their best interests, or if it's just a set and forget situation. Data will tell us over time, but that's the biggest things we're finding at the moment.
So it's complicated, right? I mean, I've never been a retailer. I mean, I've been retailer adjacent through, my various jobs and involvement with the industry. But what it feels like you guys are doing, like you said, you're packaging this all up so you have a solution with the optimal backers. And for your biggest dependencies are probably like the sponsor bank and the credit card network. Like, what does that stack look like? I mean, are they stable enough where you won't run into things like Cameron talked about, or like, hey, it's Good Friday, we're taking all your money? Things like that. Like, where does that? I think everybody wants to know, like, and everyone knows it by now. Like, well, it's not you guys; it's the 40 layers behind you, right?
Yeah.
So how are we past that? Are we past that? And are you guys stable in that regard?
Yeah. So we've spent probably close to a good 9 to 10 months navigating that, and so we're not just like, when we put a customer on a processor, so to speak, we're not just relying on what's behind that with one level. We usually have 2 to 3 contingencies. So if for whatever reason something were to happen with one, it's literally redirecting and being able to put them straight back onto a different payment sort of system. So we're making sure that we're dodging that risk for them. We're just creating that infrastructure that's there. So I would suggest the best way to explain that is we're kind of coming in as the trusted advisor who's navigated all this BS for the last nearly, 10 months, let's call it, soon to be a year. And we're saying, hey, this is who we've vetted. This is the conversations that we've had at nauseum with these companies. They're on board with this. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't want to be in front of the limelight saying it, which is unfortunate. That may change. But at this point in time, they're more than happy for us to advocate on the industry's behalf for them.
Okay, so that is, and Cameron, you can address this as well, having been more on the retail side. Do you feel like, are we finally past this day, the days of this canceling, this kind of backroom gun control, gun ban type stuff with the larger stack?
I mean, I think with what we're doing, we absolutely are. But I mean, I would argue that it's actually getting worse right now.
Really?
Because of technology, right? And a lot of these platforms are using AI to basically scrub transactions, scrub purchasing, scrub websites. So it's happening a lot faster. And I'm sure you've seen that with some of your other obligations, Chuck. But it's one of those things where for a lot of merchants, maybe their processor, maybe their existing BNPL has worked, and they've been kind of sliding between the cracks there. It works for now, but it won't work forever, right? And it's tough because we've had conversations where it's like one merchant is like, well, everything's fine for us, and the other in that exact same industry is like, oh, we got nuked twice, and it's just like it's kind of a luck game. So I do think there's an argument for both. It's getting better because there's more banks and back end partners that are spinning up that are willing to address this industry, that we're going out and we're kind of isolating and packaging through ShotPay. But there's also on the platform side, on the bank side, on everything else, like there's technology integrations now, most likely AI that's scrubbing things. So one thing I do want to kind of talk about just from the merchant side that I didn't even know for years, and this just kind of falls into that bucket of payment processors trying to operate in the shadows where they don't know where the merchant or the businessman don't know kind of what's going on. It's a simple fact that a lot of orders actually get lost, right? So that processor, say they see something, a red flag, whatever, they'll kill the order right then and there. The merchant actually never sees it, right? So it's not feeding into that data or that data pipeline that the merchant sees on a regular basis. With ShotPay, it's fully transparent. So kind of what Joe was talking about is this waterfall effect of automated systems that say one, doesn't go through for whatever reason, right? The risk parameters that we set are filters. It doesn't click there. It automatically, immediately filters to another one and another one. So there's multiple layers, and you can see that, right? Through our platform, it's going to be fully transparent there. So that was an interesting one for me. And I started kind of going through it. I'm like, oh man, like it's the same customer 4 times, declined, and then approved. And it all happened in a matter of seconds, right? So I would have never seen that before as just a regular Shopify, merchant or WooCommerce merchant. So it's very interesting. I think there's an argument to be made that there's actually an increased conversion value on the actual payment processing side too, because you're actually converting orders that would have probably died with a different system.
So Cameron, you're saying like in the old days, maybe a year ago, I had always heard that it was the MCC that was like the thing. An MCC, I think in credit card speak, is the merchant charge code or something, right? Mm-hmm. So like there's requirements that, at least there was requirements that if you are a gun store dealing that, your MCC indicated that, so you were an easy target for being squished. Mm-hmm. And then there was some protection laws that came out that said like, we forbid you from using the MCC or using an MCC that indicates that you're sporting goods or whatnot. I think those two things are still in place, but you're saying like there's even kind of more on top of that because of like AI analysis and spend trends and other factors now?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, right? I mean, there's dozens of reasons a charge wouldn't go through. It could come down to, I mean, just think about all the layers in that stack, right? Everybody has their own opinion. Our own filters of what should process, what shouldn't, what looks like fraud, what doesn't look like fraud. So traditionally, getting all of those layers to line up, correctly has been very, very difficult. So it may fall off here, it may fall off here, it may fall off here. Getting those to work, together perfectly in parallel was a huge lift. So it's there are platforms out there that are offering that level of transparency. And it's very cool to see, because for me, nerding out on just the conversion rate side of things, it's like, wow, I was losing a lot of orders that I never even knew about because the platform that I'm selling on doesn't show me that.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of people's knee jerk reaction, I think, is that there's obviously going to be more AI involved in transaction and compliance. And people's knee jerk reaction is like, oh, we need more human review. And actually, I will be strongly, and I'm going to continue to say this very strongly against that. And I mean, I deal with AI content moderation on a daily basis. And what I'm finding is the AI is phenomenal at picking up nuance and all the little things. Like the AI that I'm used to is as much of a gun nut as all of us. Like it gets the memes, it gets the brands. I had one that looked at a keychain that was like a Temu Terran Tactical Glock 43, and the naked eye, or an uninformed person, would have looked at that and said, "Oh my gosh, that person is selling a Glock 43." But the AI is like looks at it and is like, "That's a keychain, and it's from Terran Tactical because I can see the roll mark on the slide, which was fuzzy. The picture's this big, and that is not a firearm, right?" So it's more about what the AI is being told to do, because the AI has perfect understanding of what the context is.
Yep.
It's just that the policies implemented by the humans is what's making the AI. It doesn't make the decision. It gives a verdict, and then there's another system after that that's making a decision, and that's the one, the policy engine across these industries that we need to go bang on. Not the fact that the AI is making. We want the AI to be doing the analysis. We do not want humans doing it because they're terrible at it.
I agree, Chuck, and I'd argue that some of these companies are blaming the AI when it's clearly the policy they've set for the AI.
Right. Cool. I want to go back, like the more we're talking a lot of guts here, and this I think is super relevant to anyone who's in the industry. Should be really like, looking you guys up, like, oh my God, solve this problem for me. Give me better rates, get me some reliability, get me someone I can talk to, get me let me be normal, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the best thing you people are proposing. But again, I'm still intrigued on the front end, on the BNPL thing, and because there have been companies that have done extremely well here, and it's the people are taking advantage of it and using it. There's others that have been kind of predatory and have a bad rap. How do you guys navigate that BNPL space? That in itself is an exciting vertical and offers a lot of opportunity, a lot of pitfalls. How did you pick that apart, Joe, and figure out like how you're going to navigate BNPL and make it not suck?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Like the BNPL has appealed to me, Chuck, since Nick Molnar invented it with Afterpay. And his whole premise was reversing layaway, right? So it's like I met him a couple of times in Sydney at various e-com events. Super nice guy, very humble beginnings, blew Afterpay up into what it was, exited. Super cool story. But there have been a lot of other attempts at it since. There's still a lot of players in the ecosystem. There are multiple layers around the way that I've approached this with our CTO. We spent so much time stripping it back. I can successfully say that I don't think that there's a BNPL out there that I haven't used myself to purchase something. And it's interesting because I come from a loyalty background in some of my SaaS roles, and I'm more of a credit card points guy, redeem for travel, redeem for upgrades, everything like that. But having to get myself into, for lack of a better word, the trenches of BNPL, really built down matrices of like, what is the best user experience? I did a lot of what I call the grandma test. So it's like, who's the oldest relative and get them to jump on and make a BNPL transaction and transfer them the money so that it's not, affecting them in any way, but getting their opinions on what was worked best, what didn't. Product wise, they're all pretty robust, right? Like they all follow a pretty similar thing. From a technical standpoint, it's entering in details, performing a KYC check, performing a soft pull, and then going forth from there. Like they're all relatively similar in that. Some have done much better from a ease of use perspective. Some have done much better from a UI perspective, how it appeals to the eye, all of those sorts of things. Some do better on notification systems and repayment systems. So it was really a matter of just like really digging into this like a research project involving as many people as I possibly could, to a point where I'm probably going to owe them something in the future, and called in a lot of favors for that. Also, like, got a lot of people in Australia to use the ones there and like screen record for me so I could pick up, because there's different requirements and stuff there. But anyway, long story short, when it applies particularly to this space, not going to name names, but there's one that was a really big instigator for us doing this, because, we touched on the predatory thing. It's incredibly predatory. I explain this to everyone coming from that reviews loyalty space. It's like, do you know how incredibly frustrated you would have to be to start a YouTube account to create a video complaining about a BNPL product? Incredibly dissatisfied. And so everything that was done from a customer experience perspective that was done there, we completely flipped it on its head. Everything that was done from the best of the best from a product perspective, we took inspiration from. And then from a generalized like research of the market, we were very lucky to tap into a lot of our network with various size retailers, get some pretty solid data and information and understand it from that side of things. But what we really truly wanted to do with this, Chuck, that I don't think anyone had really done with BNPL, like we're the first BNPL that has layaway baked into it. That's without a doubt. Like it doesn't matter if it's industry specific or not. We're the first that does that. And one thing that we really wanted to make sure that we did is that you, myself, Cam knows this, our team is like very large percentage of veterans. We've spoken about this before, but the non-for-profit angle was something we really wanted to bake into this. It's like, how do we do the opposite of what the predatory one was doing, which was taking from the industry and not supporting the industry? We're like, how do we create the best customer experience so that people create YouTube channels to give us rave reviews as opposed to complain about us? And then how do we support everyone in the industry? So, when I talk to everyone on the team on an individual basis about their journey, what it's been like, for some of them transitioning from, team environments like special forces and going into business, like how did you go from being a tier 1 operator doing some of the craziest stuff I've ever heard someone do to them becoming this like absolute savant of development and technology and systems? Like, tell me what that journey was. And a lot of the time it would come back to these non-for-profit organizations that had helped support them through that journey somewhere along the way, whether it was some part in a medical journey, whether it was helping them transition literally from out of the team into business, into an area of study that they were passionate about. So we were like, okay, cool. This whole community in some degree cares about supporting the community. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be the couple of percentage points that don't, but majority of the community wants to support these companies. We talk about veteran-owned knife companies, veteran-founded, firearms manufacturers, all of those sorts of things. It's a big part of the community and the identity of these businesses. So we're like, okay, well, what's really passionate to them besides making their business more efficient, getting more customers for them, converting more customers for them, and increasing their AOV? Well, a lot of them are running raffles to support these charities. A lot of them are donating to these charities. A lot of them are hiring people that are transitioning from these charities that help people transition from military careers into, business careers or manufacturing careers. So why don't we do something to support all of them? And so I know for a fact that not only are we the first BNPL that's supporting a layaway system that's baked into the product, so it gives the customer a choice of, do I pay for this in increments and receive the product when I paid, or do I pay a deposit and receive the product up front? That's the options they have there. But we're also giving them this surety that not only is their purchase making the industry better because they're supporting a business. We're actually making them the hero of the story because every transaction they do, we're donating directly to a charity organization or a non-for-profit in the space. So the big ones that I call out when I talk about this, because these are the ones that have stuck with me the most, is like Second Amendment Foundation. Like there is no one who is doing more for our entire industry on Capitol Hill than the Second Amendment Foundation, whether it's fighting stuff around pistol braces, whether it's sticking up for individuals who've been caught on the wrong side of what I would call a bullshit technicality or a bullshit law. They're doing it. Like there's no disputes about what they're doing, and it's good work. They don't take a political line. They're just fighting for the Second Amendment. You know, Cam's been involved with them for a very long time. I met them at SHOT Show. Fantastic people doing that. Trust them 100%. Let's support them. And then on the other side of it, you have the veteran non-for-profits. And so, you know, I'll let Cam share more of a story about Hunter 7 if it comes up. But like Hunter 7 is literally helping, you know, veterans who were tip of the spear, GWAT, identify if they've got cancer markers and pre-screening for cancer at mass, at scale. But every year they're not in a position where they can continue to grow. They're at a position where they're starting again and they're relying on donations to go, and they can't grow and do more good work. So we're putting the customer in a position where they know that they're the hero of the story by when they purchase, not only are they supporting a manufacturer that they love, not only are they getting the product that they want, but they're actually helping these organizations that at the end of the day are a very, very large backbone and a big part of the industry. So those are the two things that I think we're addressing in a very different way. And like I say, with the BNPL, we're not reinventing the wheel here. There's plenty of companies that have done it well, but we're making it specific to our industry and to our space.
That's good. That's a very strong statement of support for some good organizations that your company's directly kind of tied into. Cameron, I'm sure you've seen, I mean, just via OST Capital and before we even started it, this, as Joe mentioned, there's this pipeline of all the kind of special operators coming out of all the branches, just have an affinity for organizing excellence in other spaces, right? And it could, you know, majority obviously go towards a tactical kind of practical point of endeavor, but also just in business in general. I mean, honestly, I love, you know, as much as you can love looking at LinkedIn, but I follow a bunch of guys out of the service who have that level, and I see what they do and how they help each other and how that ecosystem. And gosh, I must think like 40-50% at least of the pitches that we get are from guys who were in teams and are now got pretty cool ideas on what to do in the space. So Cameron, I mean, any thoughts on that as well?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I love obviously supporting veterans however we can. You know, it's been almost a decade since I've been off active duty, so I've gotten a little bit of hindsight, and I've gotten to work with enough guys to really gain some perspective on this. But there are some serious innovators that are active duty guys, you know, whether they're special operations or just regular military, serious innovators, serious brains out there, right? And there's no great program within the military or within the government that helps take that energy, take that drive, take that tenacity that they get from special operations, or maybe they had going into special operations, and direct it properly to the private sector. And I'll be the first to tell you, granted, I wasn't in Ranger Bat for too long. I did one contract, ended up getting out, but I saw a lot of I got to work with a lot of great guys, and I saw a lot of kind of how they worked, right? And they just need to be steered in the right direction. So, you know, there's programs out there like the Honor Foundation. The one that I went through was called the Care Coalition at the time. Now I think it's like Warrior Care or something along those lines. I don't want to butcher it, but point being is if we can give back to, those foundations that are really taking the time to kind of harness the characteristics and the energy of those guys and direct it into the private sector. I mean, I'm watching how easy it is for these guys to succeed. All of us team guys are just so extreme one way or the other, right? It's like those initial months, those initial years when you get out, it takes like 1 degree of separation. And after a year, you're a mile away from where you should be. And that 1 degree of separation could be drugs and alcohol, right? And it's like they go all in on drugs and alcohol. So I'm a huge, huge advocate for the minute you get out, the day you get out, and I'll tell my story. The day you get out, start directing that energy towards the right place, and nothing in your mind will change, right? It's still a mission, it's a different mission, but it's something that requires a whole new set of skills. Kill your ego. It's time to start learning. And I didn't realize it at the time. And for years I would complain about this, but not to go south and be sobbed here, but my last day in the military was at one of my good friend's funeral, right? And that night I took a red eye home, and the next morning I was in the Tour Knives warehouse grinding blades, right? So there was no break. There was no time for me to kind of like settle some of those things inside of me. In hindsight, it was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, because had I just kind of gotten home and, Monday morning comes and my phone's not ringing and none of the guys are there, and I'm waking up in some random house and all those things that you hear veterans talk about post-service, had that happened to me, I don't know where the energy would have been directed. And it would have just kind of been this, sad situation where it's like, oh, nobody's looking out for me. But the simple fact that we have, programs out there that are built to just kind of help guide guys in the right direction is everything we need. And in my opinion, it's a way that we can invest back into the industry, because the industry will never die, right? The only way it dies is if the people within it stop pushing forward and we stop getting that fresh crop of guys. A lot of people like to focus on the younger generation. Well, I think there's a very specific demographic within the younger generation that we should focus on. And I'm biased, right? Because I have experience in the military. I think those military guys are it, right? Because they're willing to fight. They're passionate as all hell, right? So when things get tough, especially in this industry, and that is inevitable, things are going to get tough, they're able to kind of push through that. And I'll be the first one to tell you, and this is something I'm going to clip right here from my LinkedIn later, because I think it's important, but business is the hardest thing I've ever done, right? You could stick me on a helicopter, you could put me through selection, you could do any of that crazy stuff that everybody likes to write books about. Business is the hardest thing you will ever do, right? And more specifically, balancing business, balancing family, balancing all of these other things that they never teach you how to do in the teams, right? It's one mission, all your focus is on that one thing. You don't learn those, right? So having mentorship programs or having these nonprofits that step up and just provide some counsel, right? It's like, look, guys, yeah, you have everything it takes to be an incredible businessman, but don't ruin your family at the same time. Those are kind of the nonprofits that we really like. And then Hunter 7, it's totally different. And I know I'll talk to this point just because Joe brought them up. There's a hidden enemy out there with post GWAT vets, and the hidden enemy is cancer. And we don't know exactly where it comes from. Everybody likes to focus on burn pits. I think there's arguments to be made for, carbon exposure through all the rounds that we shot, weird exposures in other countries. I mean, whatever, white phosphorus, flashbang, you name it, whatever it is, cancer is striking the post GWAT community like crazy right now. Specifically, at least in my world, and this is probably from concussive blast exposure and all that, but specifically brain tumors. So Hunter 7 has really stepped up on both a preventative measure basis, but also on a treatment basis for a lot of these veterans, to include myself when I had a scare, right? I called Chelsea out of the blue. I said, hey, something's going on. I need to get checked up. And the next day she had me in a full cancer screening, and that was across the country, right? So huge supporter of Hunter 7. We're going to be giving back to them as well. I mean, they stepped up. My mom was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer last year. They stepped up and they started providing support for her. So it's one of those things where there's a way that we can continue to progress this industry and grow this industry by investing back in the right people. And I don't want to just isolate veterans as the right people, but they're a very strong part of this industry. So I love it. I think it's something. I mean, Joe will tell you this too. I've been a huge proponent for it. Like whatever we can do to just help these guys out, and feed them into these companies that we're serving, and it's kind of a dual purpose aspect there.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. The Hunter 7 is amazing. People can look that up online. And I love that, again, the technology solution, because in the private industry, we're seeing so much in terms of like blood screening, cancer screening, full body scans. My other half, my wife actually does angel investing in that space as well. And we, you really just want all these things to succeed, because there's the number of pitches that we're getting of just like another way to, figure out what's going to go wrong before it goes wrong, or in early detection and technical decisions has been great. And to have the veterans take full advantage of that easily with low friction is amazing. And yeah, I also want to put out that I'm sure as you guys, we all want to help in any way we can for people coming out of any kind of military engagement, any veteran who wants a friendly face to pitch a business idea, to say like, hey, what do I need to make this fly? Is this a good idea? What's my pitch deck look like? Do my numbers make sense? What's my valuation here? Reach out to us at Open Source Defense, either at hello@opensourcedefense.com or fund@opensourcedefense.com. We would love to be a friendly face, can give you very blunt, but friendly feedback on what works and what doesn't, at least in our experience. So yeah, I'm glad we're all on the same page there. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I would echo that. And to your comment about blunt feedback, military guys are used to it. So, no, it's needed, and I found like that's actually one of the problems, right? Is these guys get out and they start getting fluffed and like sympathy and empathy, and it screws with their subconscious, right? And they start to become a victim, right?
Yeah.
You start hearing the 22 a day and the PTSD and all these things. Cut all that, right? Like you're starting fresh. Let's get you out into the world and let's give you the right guidance, the guidance that you're used to, right? The blunt guidance. And whether it's an idea, you're just trying to get a W-2 position or a job or go get your MBA, whatever it may be. There's a lot of mentors in this space, to include myself. I mean, anybody can reach out to me at any point. If it is something that I think is perfect for OSD, I'm sending them right to you, Chuck. But it's in the bottom of my heart, like that is something I absolutely love doing. And you can ask probably a number of guys. I've jumped on phone calls. I'll spend 2 hours on the phone with a vet that I've never met, just to try and give them that Kickstarter. So to kind of put a cap in that, that's a very, very strong pillar that ShotPay is being built on. And to Joe as the founder, I mean, the fact that he's an Aussie, he came over to America, and he has to kind of listen to all the crap I feed him. He's been absolutely 100% on board with all of this, because he recognizes the value that is not only brought to the shot industry, but to just the defense space, to every other industry out there, because of the type of mentality that a lot of these vets have. So that's like I said, that's a very strong pillar for our business.
Right on. Well, guys, this is a super useful. I'm very optimistic about what you're doing. I know the industry should be taking advantage of it. Joe, you want to close out with anything, and then I'll ask you, Cameron.
Yeah, look, Chuck, I want to thank Open Source Defense, not only for being having us on the podcast today, but to echo the sentiment of what you said earlier, the blunt feedback that you gave us early on. And I'm just super grateful, to have you guys on the journey with us, and really appreciate the belief and the introductions and the assistance and just everything. I mean, you guys are absolutely fantastic to work with. And I really love the fact that we're all focused on supporting and serving this industry better. So I just really want to thank you for that. There's not enough people doing that, especially people of your caliber. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Right on.
Yeah, no, and once again, Chuck, thank you for everything. I mean, guidance, obviously OSD's partnership, But yeah, I mean, we're coming in, we're providing a solution. We're not providing an alternative. So obviously, everybody that we work with is going to be a little bit different of a case. And something that, another strong pillar that we stand on is we're a one-stop shop, right? So when we talk about these Frankenstein, payment and banking systems that all these companies have together, one point of contact. We're going to be able to handle everything you do. It's coming from the position of like pain that I've dealt with for a decade, right? So I understand it. I know what's a priority. If you have to call me at midnight or call one of our guys at midnight, we're there. So one point of contact for every corner of your business and in the payment space, and we're going to work with you. We're going to save you guys money. We're going to figure out how to increase those conversion rates, and ultimately, grow your business and grow the industry.
Right on. Joe, plug, where can people find you for ShotPay? What's the best way to contact you, and also your podcast?
Definitely. So www.shotpay.com. Retain, Grow, Thrive is the podcast. And LinkedIn, I'm super active on. Once again, to Cam's point, if anyone wants to reach out and have a conversation about any of this, please feel free to reach out anytime. My work email, which is now my personal email, is joe@shotpay.com. I'm on around the clock. Chuck knows that as well. But yeah, feel free to reach out. Open book. We just want to help grow the industry.
Right on. Cameron, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Probably the same way. Anything through ShotPay kind of filters to both Joe and myself. So I'm doing better on LinkedIn. I promise. I've thrown a few close up. I was never a huge LinkedIn guy, but you can always get a hold of me there. But yeah, everything through ShotPay filters to Joe and myself. We like to put our fingers on every single merchant that comes through. We're not just going to pass you guys off to some random rep that's going to manage you. So, yeah.
Cool. And as usual, opensourcedefense.com. Everyone should subscribe to our Substack and follow our X account as well. Thank you guys so much. And we're really excited to see where this goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.